Greetings, wonderful scholars, and welcome to Learning with Avant-garde Books. Today I'm going to be doing a lesson on capitalization. There are a lot of rules for capitalization, and it's very important for you to know these rules to make sure that your writing is the best. Well, what I would like for you to do is get into a very comfortable place and get relaxed so we can start our lesson on capitalization. All right, let's get started. So, first of all, I want to ask this question. What words should be capitalized in the English language? Well, I found this great acronym that you can use to help you remember most of the rules. The acronym is MINTS, and the M stands for months. You must capitalize the months of the year, the days of the week, and holidays. We'll get into that a little later. The I, you should always capitalize the letter I when it stands by itself as a pronoun, as a subject. N, you capitalize the names of specific people, places, and things. We call those proper nouns. You should also capitalize proper adjectives. You must capitalize the titles of books, movies, schools, teams, companies, etc. When you're talking about the titles of books and movies and short stories and plays, there are certain words in the title that you normally don't capitalize unless those words are significant. We're going to get into that in the slide presentation. And also, you always, in the English language, capitalize the first word of a sentence. The first letter of the first word of every sentence should be capitalized. Well, we're going to continue learning. Don't forget that your learning potential is limitless. Let's keep going. So, using the acronym MINTS, we started off with our months. And this is very important for you to know that the months of the year, the days of the week, and the holidays are capitalized in the English language. Now, I taught other languages in Spanish and French. You generally do not capitalize the months of the year, the days of the week. So, this is different for other languages. But for English, the months of the year, all 12, must be capitalized, all 7 days of the week, and your holidays. Here are some examples. And what I've done is I have simply made the words that are capitalized in this sentence, in the sentences, with gold or yellow letters. So look at those. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was born on January 15th, 1929. What is January? Well, it's a month, and that's why it's capitalized. Look at the second sentence. He delivered his famous I Have a Dream speech on Wednesday, August 28th, 1963. Wednesday is a day of the week. It must be capitalized. Also, the month of August. Later, we'll get into titles, but you can see that I Have a Dream is capitalized because it's the title of the speech. And A, generally articles and certain conjunctions, unless they are significant to the title, you don't have to capitalize. And the reason why we have quotation marks around the speech, because usually for shorter pieces of literature or speeches, we put those around, we put quotation marks around them. All right, you can see, read sentence 3 to yourself. And look at sentence 4. Muslims celebrate Ramadan by fasting, praying, reflecting, and focusing on strengthening their communities. Now, Ramadan is a holiday. Don't forget that you should capitalize all holidays. And number 5, in the United States, Memorial Day is celebrated on the first Monday of September. So I tried to cover everything in that sentence, all the rules. We got a holiday capitalized, we have Monday, and we have September. So let me know if you have any questions. You can pause if you have any questions. Are we going to keep going? Here's a very important rule for capitalization, and that is you should always capitalize the I. When I is a subject or it's a pronoun in a sentence, it must be capitalized when it stands by itself. We're not going to read all of the sentences, but I would like to read 3 and 4 because they have a lot of I's, but you can go back and you can read these sentences yourself and notice that when you see the I by itself, it is capitalized. The way I see it, if you want the rainbow, you got to put up with the rain. And none other than Dolly Parton said that, and she is pictured here. She has a very great nonprofit where she gives children's books to make sure that they have books to read to build literacy, and I love her for that. So that's why she's in this video presentation. Here's another great quote by another legend, Michael Jordan. When I step onto the court, I don't have to think about anything. If I have a problem off the court, I find that after I play, my mind is clearer and I can come up with a better solution. And notice that all the I's, because when he says I, it's standing by itself, it's a pronoun, it's a subject in the sentence, that is capitalized. And you just have to remember that rule. And for some reason, people still struggle with this rule. But the good news is whenever you make a mistake, you in writing, you can correct that mistake. And so the whole purpose of this presentation is to help you learn what are the rules. And then if you do mess up, you're human, you made a mistake, try to fix it. All right. I'm proud of you, and we're going to continue learning together. Here's another very important rule when it comes to capitalization. Now, we have nouns, we have common nouns, and we have proper nouns. We have adjectives and we have proper adjectives. Common nouns are simply words that name people, places, things, and ideas, but they don't name a particular place, thing, idea, or person. And so they're just common nouns, they're general nouns. The same thing with adjectives. We have different kinds of adjectives. We have common adjectives and we have proper adjectives. Regular adjectives, they basically just modify nouns. They give us more information about nouns. But when an adjective gives specific information about a noun, that becomes a proper adjective. And you must capitalize proper adjectives as well as proper nouns. So let's look at some of the examples here. What you see in the sort of orange color is a proper noun or proper adjective. So first sentence, Barack Obama was the 44th president of the United States of America. Notice that Barack Obama is capitalized because it names a particular person. United States of America is capitalized because it names a particular place. Remember, when you're identifying a specific place, person, or thing, you must capitalize those words. Look at example number 2. President Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation on January 1st, 1863. Notice that president is capitalized. So president is interesting because you only capitalize it if it is directly before a person's name, or you're saying president to replace the name. So if I say the president helped to stop the Congress lockdown or whatever, then I would capitalize president because it's replacing the name Joe Biden or whoever is president in office. All right, look at this sentence and you can see it. President is capitalized. Abraham Lincoln, it is capitalized because it is before his name. Emancipation Proclamation names a particular document, it's a particular thing, so it must be capitalized. And I didn't capitalize January in this case. I didn't highlight January, but you know that all months are capitalized. Look at our next sentence. Pablo Neruda was a Chilean poet who won the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1971. Again, what is Pablo Neruda? It is a specific name of a person. Now, Chilean, depending on how you want to say it, tomato, it is a proper adjective because it is modifying poet. It is his nationality, and nationalities are depending on how you use them, can be proper nouns or they can be proper adjectives. In this case, it's a proper adjective. Nobel Prize in Literature is the name of a particular prize. That is why it's capitalized. All right, let's look at our next sentence. Chinua Achebe was a famous Nigerian writer. Names are always capitalized because they name particular people. Nigerian here is a proper adjective because it is modifying, it's giving us more information about writer, so it must be capitalized. And then Yosemite National Park is in California. Yosemite National Park. Why was I having trouble saying that word? Yosemite National Park is in California because its park would be a common noun, but because this names a particular park, you're going to capitalize Yosemite National and Park, and California names a particular state. So state, state, would be a common noun, but when you name a particular state, you have to capitalize it. So it's Georgia has to be capitalized, New Jersey, New York, Illinois. You have to capitalize your states, your countries, and your cities. The names of those particular places have to be capitalized. All right, don't forget your learning potential is limitless, and we're going to keep things moving. Remember when I started the presentation, I said that you could use an acronym MINTS, M-I-N-T-S, to help you remember which words should be capitalized in the English language. That T stands for titles. So in English, we have to capitalize the titles of books, movies, plays, special events. And here are some examples, and I've highlighted those things in gold. We first have The Color Purple by Alice Walker, was published in 1982. We capitalize the title, The Color Purple. And notice also that anytime you are writing the title of a book and the title of a movie, it needs to be in italics. And I will help you know how to do that with your computers when you're doing this for different writing assignments in class. Alice Walker is also capitalized, but we already covered that. Remember, you always capitalize the names of people. Number 2, we've attended the Sweet Auburn Festival for the last 25 years. If we were just saying event, it would be a common noun. But when we name a particular event, it is going to be capitalized. And that's why Sweet Auburn Festival, those words are all capitalized. Look at our third example. Cats is a musical based on a book of poetry titled Old Possum's Book of Practical Cats. So notice that Cats is capitalized because it's the title of a play or musical. And what you want to make sure is that it's in italics. For shorter pieces of literature, like short stories or news articles or magazine articles or chapters of a book, you would put those titles, you put quotation marks around those titles. But for larger works like books and movies, and plays, you're going to put that in italics. And again, the book is italicized and it's capitalized. Old Possum's Book of Practical Cats. Again, you capitalize the words that are significant. That's why of is not capitalized. So generally in titles, you don't capitalize prepositions and articles unless they're at the beginning of the title, okay? And look at the last example number 4. In 1977, Alex Haley won a Pulitzer Prize for his book, Roots, The Saga of an American Family. Again, you have to capitalize the title of books. This is also a movie, so we would capitalize it. And notice that of and the word an are not capitalized. Articles are generally not capitalized when they're in the middle of the title, and of is not capitalized either. But note that Alex Haley, that's the name of a person, you got to capitalize both names. Notice that Pulitzer Prize is also capitalized because it names a particular award. So when something names something specifically or in particular, you need to capitalize it. Let me know if you're still having problems with this. I hope that this video is helping you. Well, let's keep going. We have a few more slides to go. All right, I found this somewhere and I had to use it. And these are the rules for capitalization of titles. So you do capitalize the first and the last word. Generally, you don't capitalize the things in the middle because the things in the middle would be prepositions and articles, insignificant words. You capitalize adjectives and adverbs, verbs and helping verbs when we're talking about titles. But again, you don't capitalize the prepositions that are in the middle, the articles, unless they're at the beginning, and short coordinating conjunctions, like the words like and or but. If they're a part of the title and they're in the middle, you don't have to capitalize those. Now, I know capitalization can be a little involved, there are a lot of rules, but the more that you write, and more specifically, the more that you read, the more that you will start to see the correct language structure, and then you'll recreate it yourself. All right. I'm totally proud of you. You're doing an amazing job, and let's keep going. This rule is an absolute non negotiable in the English language. And believe it or not, I still have students who show work and submit work without capitalizing the first word of a sentence. Remember, mince, the S stands for start sentences with a capital letter. So let's look at our four examples. We have Shirley Chisholm became a politician because she wanted to make a difference in the world. Shirley, of course, is a name, but it's also the first word of a sentence. So you have to capitalize it. In this case, I use names, but it doesn't matter what word it is. That first letter of the first word, it must be capitalized. And let's read a few more sentences. Toni Morrison was awarded a Nobel Prize in Literature in 1993. Toni starts the sentence off. The T has to be capitalized. Nobel Prize, again in literature, that names a particular award. That's why it's capitalized. Next sentence, Morrison's father, George Wofford, moved from Georgia to Ohio after witnessing a lynching of two black businessmen when he was 15 years old. We have a lot of things capitalized here. Number one, we have Toni Morrison's father's name. Names of people must be capitalized. So that's why George Wofford is capitalized. Georgia and Ohio are both states. They're the names of particular states. That's why they must be capitalized. If you were just saying, in this state, we grow peaches, then state would not be capitalized. But when you name a particular state, it must be capitalized. And black is actually capitalized because in this case, black is a proper adjective, so it should be capitalized. Last but not least, we have Louis Fogel, spent 34 years in prison for a crime he did not commit. Louis Fogel is the name of a person, and the L is the beginning of a sentence. So that's just a non-negotiable. You students, you must capitalize that very first letter of every sentence. All right, let's keep going. All right, here's another non-negotiable, and I know that when you do quotes, it's a little bit involved, but the more you do it, the better you will get at it. And when you're reading anything, you want to pay attention sometimes to how dialogue is written, because there are commas involved, there are quotation marks involved, and I know there are a lot of rules, but the more you write and the more you read, the easier this will become. And as I said before, I know that sometimes we make mistakes, but those mistakes can be corrected. So you have to capitalize the first word after a quotation mark, after a quote. So here we have some examples. Gabrielle said happily, "My sister Madison is the nicest person in the world." Notice that that M is capitalized because it is right after that quotation mark. Here's another example. Michelle Obama once said, "We need to do a better job about putting ourselves higher on our own to-do list." Now, notice that what she said is in quotation marks, and then the first letter after the first quotation mark is capitalized. But also pay attention to do. Notice that you have single quotation marks around that to do because you're highlighting that particular word or expression. Well, anytime you want to highlight a special word or phrase, inside of quotations, you use single quotation marks around that word or phrase. And that's why they're there like that. Good job. And also, rather fail with honor than succeed by fraud. Woo, Sophocles, one of my favorite Greek philosophers, said that. And again, the rather, the R is capitalized because it is the first word in a sentence, is behind the quotation mark. I can be changed by what happens to me, but I refuse to be reduced by it. Maya Angelou once said that. And notice again, you have the first word is capitalized when it goes in quotation marks. Notice something about the punctuation. The punctuation is inside the quotation marks. Now, look at sentence number 2 and sentence number 1. We have the comma there, and then we have the quote. Keep that in mind. And again, I know there are a lot of rules that go with this, but you will learn them and you will continue to do well with this. Here's a capitalization rule you might not have thought too much about, but this one is very important. It's capitalize the name of a family member if it's used as a proper noun. So if you're referring to a person and that's the name you call that person, then it has to be capitalized. And let's just study the examples here. And again, the more you read, the more you write, you'll see this. So look at the example. Grandma loved working in her garden every morning. Grandma is the name. That's what they call the person, grandma. So that's why it's capitalized. All right, look at number 2, though. My grandmother loved working in her garden every morning. We don't capitalize it here because we're not referring to grandmother as a proper noun. That's not what, we're calling her grandma. So that's why it is not capitalized. Look at number 3. Auntie never missed an opportunity to help someone in need. Auntie was her name. We called her Auntie. That's why it's capitalized. But look at the last example. My aunt loved helping other people. We don't capitalize it because we've identified just aunt in general. It's not being used as a proper noun, as a proper name. All right. If you have any questions, you know how to contact me. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening and learning. I know that we do a lot through email and through text messaging, but there are some things that just have to be mailed in the mail. And when you do that, you need to know that addresses, the address must be capitalized. You just have to know that. And so let's look at some examples. Also, when we talk about the cardinal points, we don't generally capitalize them unless those points refer to a particular region. So let's study this. So the first example is the restaurant is at 5567 Mason Avenue in Deer Park, Florida. You have to capitalize Mason and Avenue and Deer Park, Florida. You have to capitalize that because it names a particular city and state and name a particular street. All the parts of the address other than the numbers, they have to be capitalized. All right, you can send the check to Post Office Box 4500, Austell Park, California, 52341. Again, you got to capitalize the parts of an address. Now, look at the special note about locations. Only capitalize words like north and south, west, northwest, etc. These are compass directions or cardinal points when they refer to a particular region. Remember, the key is you capitalize things when you're being specific, when you're being particular. Notice the 2 examples here. Turn west on Cherry Lane. You don't have to capitalize west. But if you say she lives on the West Coast with her husband, that's like a region and it's a place, a specific place. You capitalize West Coast. All right. So again, you'll get practice. You'll get better every day. And I believe in you. All right, here are just a few final rules that I'm going to go over. There's so many different rules. The English language, they say, is one of the hardest languages to learn. because there are so many rules, and then there are exceptions to the rules. But here are just some that I see students making sometimes, and I want to try to help you. So first of all, you do not have to capitalize common nouns. Sometimes I'll see a sentence, and in just the middle of the sentence, a person will capitalize a noun randomly. You don't do that. So look at the example there. All of those are common nouns. They should not be capitalized. Partial quotes are sort of different. So when you're giving a quote, but you're saying, something that someone said and it's not the full quote, then you don't have to capitalize the first word. And you don't really have to have commas. You can just have the quotation marks around it. So let's look at that example. I can't believe that Rob publicly shared his personal issues, including that he was going to sue his former employer when he left the hospital. So in quotation marks, that's something he said, but it's not the whole quote. And so that's why the G is not capitalized, okay? And here's another rule that people may not know. You don't have to capitalize the first word after a colon. Natalie set the following goals for herself: making good grades, graduating from college, and starting her own business. And so after that, because you're using that colon to create a list, you don't have to capitalize the first word after the colon. You don't have to capitalize the seasons. The seasons are not capitalized. The months are, the days of the week, and holidays, but you do not have to capitalize the seasons, all right? So keep that in mind. Here's another one that people may not know. The sentence after a semicolon, you don't have to capitalize the first word that begins that sentence. So remember, a semicolon can be used when you have two clauses that can stand totally by themselves. We call them independent clauses, but they're closely related and you don't want to separate them. So you can create a longer sentence by just putting a semicolon between these two independent clauses. So let's look at the example. CSK is one of the best schools in Atlanta. Notice that we have a semicolon. It has a 100% graduation rate. So those two sentences are closely related. Both of them can stand alone and be complete thoughts. You don't necessarily have to have a period and start a new sentence. You can just separate those two independent clauses with a semicolon. You don't have to capitalize the first word after the semicolon. And don't forget, we talked about this before, like those prepositions and articles and conjunctions that are in the middle of the titles, you really don't have to capitalize them unless they're at the beginning. So the 1619 project, Born on the Water, notice that on and the are not capitalized. We got a preposition and we got an article, and they do not have to be capitalized, okay? So I know this was a lot, but this can really help you. And if you still have additional questions, I am available. Again, I thank you for listening and learning. I'm very proud of you. Don't feel discouraged if you make mistakes in writing. All you have to do is learn the rules and how to correct those mistakes and get practice doing things better, and you will get better. And after a while, it will just become like second nature. You'll know it. It'll be something that you know, and you don't have to be worried about making a mistake. Well, I hope you have a beautiful day.